Dial A for Action by James Smyth. Chris pulled the semi-automatic weapon from his holster and thrust it into the terrorist's face. The eyes that looked back at him were full of hate. Bloodthirsty, terrorist hate. He tightened his finger on the trigger. Above his head he could hear the whir of the helicopter with its cargo of reinforcements. But there was no time for that now. There was only time for action. He pressed the muzzle of the weapon against the terrorist's forehead. "Where are the hostages?" he barked. His voice rough from too many cigarettes, too many nights of drinking, too much shouting. I not know, stammered the terrorist in broken English. I not know. Well, maybe this will refresh your memory, said Chris. And with a sudden, decisive movement, he pulled the trigger. Blood and brains and skull fragments splattered the wall. The lifeless body slumped to the floor. Chris holstered his weapon. It wasn't an ideal outcome. He still didn't know where the hostages were. But what the hell? The world had one less terrorist in it now. It wasn't much, but it was a start. So what do you think? It's good, isn't it? I mean, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but it really grabs you by the balls, doesn't it? It makes you think, yeah, fuck terrorism! That's really what I was going for. I'm quite socio-political that way. But that doesn't mean it can't be a page-turner too, you know? All I ever really wanted to be was a writer. To tell stories. I want to make people laugh, to make them cry, to help them leave behind the sorry lives of just a few hours. If I can achieve that, I'll die a happy man. I'm open to criticism, though. Honestly, I'm not precious. And I think I can tell already what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, it's ballsy. Yeah, it's gung-ho, but is it ballsy and gung-ho enough? And I think you might be onto something. Let's try. Where are the hostages? He barked, his voice rough from too many unfiltered cigarettes. Too many nights of drinking neat, methylated spirits in filthy Middle Eastern whorehouses. Where the bastard are the hostages, you low-life mongrel? Fuck you, infidel pig! The terrorist lifted his head defiantly. I never tell. Wrong answer, said Chris, twisting the barrel of the weapon and releasing the safety. All the way wrong. And with a sudden decisive movement, he slammed the butt of the gun into the terrorist's face. As the man fell screaming to the floor, Chris stepped back to survey his handiwork. Now, you have a broken nose to go with your broken English, he said, lighting a cigar. No, please, no, screamed the terrorist. Chris leveled his weapon. They always said he had an itchy trigger finger. Well, it was itchy now. Itchy like hell. And it was time to scratch. Now that is more like it. Oh, man, I can feel my heart racing. Man, it's so exhilarating being a writer. And, you know, it's a privilege too, you know, being able to conjure these things up. A broken nose to go with his broken English. How do I come up with these things? But it's not all macho grandstanding. Sure, I can do action, you know that already. Tell me that you're not just about ready to puke up with excitement. But you need to be able to do the quiet, boring bits too. What they call the lull before the storm. It's about contrast, yeah? How much more poignant it is to see Chris blow the head off a terrorist if you know that only days beforehand he was sitting in a beautiful meadow with his girlfriend. Chris reached across and held Lisa's hand. Her fingers looked so tiny and delicate in his huge paw. A paw that had, only that morning, thrown a grenade at a tank. She looked up at him and smiled. The sun shone in her golden hair and glittered on the diamond earrings that Chris had bought her for their anniversary. 3 years they'd been together. 3 wonderful years, and Chris knew he would do anything for her, anything except betray his country. Should she ask him? Which, so far, she hadn't. You look beautiful, he said, lifting his huge paw to toy with one of her earrings. Lisa giggled and fluttered her eyelashes coquettishly. You're just saying that, she said. No, I'm not, said Chris. You are, said Lisa, slapping him playfully on the arm. I'm definitely not, said Chris. Later they walked along the riverside and watched the ducks swimming to and fro. Lisa tossed them a piece of leftover sandwich that she'd bought at Tesco and giggled delightedly as the birds thrashed violently around in the water, desperate for a crumb. Chris looked at her and fingered the engagement ring in his pocket. Was it the right time? Was any time the right time? Damn it! He could interrogate a Russian double agent for days on end, using rusty spanners if necessary. But he couldn't ask the girl he loved a simple question. Then, with the steely resolve that had been ingrained through years of training, he thought, fuck it. He put his huge paws on her shoulders and turned her to face him. He got down on one knee. The tears were already welling in Lisa's eyes when he produced the box. Will you? He began. He didn't even have to finish the question. Of course I will, you big, silly, tough guy, she cried, bending down to hug him, and he hugged her back as hard as he dared, knowing that with the strength he had in his gym-honed biceps, he could accidentally snap her spine like a toothpick. Not a dry eye in the house. I knew it! And what you have here, you see, is what they call a fully rounded character. He's a fighter, but he's also a lover. And he's got a heart of gold too. There's a bit later on where he rescues an injured dog from some quicksand. This isn't some 2-bit tenner-penny bargain bin fodder. This deserves to be up there, alongside Andy McNabb. This deserves to give Dan Brown a run for his money. This deserves to be something awesome. So why, do you think, would I receive a letter like this? Dear sir, thank you for your unsolicited manuscript. Unfortunately, we don't feel, in its present form, that it has the literary merit that we would require for publication. Kind regards, blah, de blah, de blah, de blah, de blah. I mean, come on! Now you have a broken nose to go with your broken English. That That line alone is enough to make it fly off the shelves. Have they even read the thing? And this isn't just one read. Oh no. 28. Please. 28 people, 28 so-called experts in the field who don't think that the story of a hard-bitten ex-marine called out of retirement to avenge the death of his brother is something that people want to read. Look, I'm just flicking through at random here. Chris cradled his brother's wounded body in his arms. Michael was bleeding. Bleeding bad. And he was in a world of pain. Chris pulled his gun. He knew what he had to do. He had to shoot his own brother. He had to shoot his own brother in the head. In a low, desperate voice, he said the words out loud. I have to shoot my own brother in the head. Had Michael heard that? Did it even matter? See? You don't get drama like that in bloody Martin Amis, do you? His gun clip was emptied down. Out of ammo. Chris grabbed a serving spoon from a nearby surface. Could you kill a man with a serving spoon? There was only one way to find out. I could go on. I won't. But I could, after all. If this hasn't convinced you that I'm a talented writer, then, well, nothing. But I won't give up. I promise you that. I will see my name up there. In W.H. Smyth. Up there on the bestsellers list with the big boys. And if I have to send this out to 100 publishers and get back 100 replies, just like that one, then I will. The world hasn't seen the last of me. Talent will prevail. Justice will be done. I'll leave you with this. It's what they call an epilogue. Chris sank back into the wicker chair. He felt spent, done with. He was older now. A man who had lived a life that most people, most normal people, wouldn't be able to believe. But yes, he had done those things. He had met those people. And he had killed. He had killed many times. Blood drawn from 100 nations was on his hands. With a sigh, he picked up his pen, a simple Parker ballpoint. He looked down at the thick stack of paper on the table beside him. A lifetime of adventure was pressed between those pages. A diary of pure adrenaline. And next to that, a smaller stack of papers. A stack of papers that meant, in all likelihood, nobody would ever read it. Lisa was dead. Long dead. Killed by a Peruvian sniper. His son Leo decapitated by a helicopter blade whilst trying to evacuate a school full of orphans and friends. Ha! What did a man like him want with friends? All he wanted was for someone to hear his story and to believe him. After all this time, that was all. Someone to believe. He picked up a fresh sheet of paper and began to write.